browser is stalled and such. In 2.0, what you have is like asynchronous and cross-domain. So 1.0 applications used to run on a one single domain. So say for example, you are on xyz.com, your entire application is running on xyz.com. Now with a 2.0, your application is asynchronous, so you are doing something in your document object model in your browser, your application will not get stalled. So you fire an event, you keep on working on the other part of your browser, and still your application is up and live. And when you say cross-domain, your application is not running on a one domain, it's running on the multiple domains. So you have a single sign-on, you sign on Yahoo, you go to the Flickr, Flickr will also recognize that who you are and give you the access to the resources and such. So all these applications are becoming more like a cross-domain application. It's like not binded to just one domain. And last important part is information sharing. What we are looking at is, usually in a 1.0 application, you have your own database, and from that the whole information set or information coming out. With 2.0, you have like a multiple sources of information. You are not consuming information from the one source. Say for example, you have implemented RSS feed in your Web 2.0 application. So your RSS feed can be configured by the end user, and end user can define that I want a feed coming from CNN, I want a feed coming from Google, I want a feed coming from my banking site, etc. So pretty much now you don't have a control on the information which your end user is consuming or your application is consuming. It's all coming from the multiple source, and that is the essential need of time, where people are looking for, there is an essential urge for integrated information platform, and that's what we are looking at. Now this has impact on threats which we are looking at. So we used to have a multiple entry points to the system, but all these entry points to the 1.0 application were more structured. So now if I launch my application, I know that person will come to a login page, he will pass on your username and password, and then he will go to this page, and then this page, and then this page, and then this page, and so on. Over 2.0, what you have is a back-end web services running. So this web services has like given a 36, 50, 150 functions exposed. So by sitting in my browser, I can invoke any function at any point of time. I don't have to go with one function and then a second and then a third and then fourth. So what we are looking at is entry points are scattered, they are multiple. So now you have a lot of hassle to manage all these different entry points for security reasons, which we'll see as we go. Now looking at the dependency, on a 1.0 we had a limited dependency, on 2.0 we have multiple technologies to deal with, we have many information sources to be consumed, we have many different protocols coming up, and all these is like confusion which is bringing up some of the new sort of vulnerability with the same old payload. Vulnerabilities, if you look at 1.0, we always focus on more or less on a server side, typical injections we try to do and such. With 2.0, what we are looking at, or what we are adding on 1.0, is a web services payloads. We try to hack into web services, maybe a JSON web services or SOA web services. And then we are looking at the cross-site scripting and cross-site request forgery for all this 2.0 stuff. And exploitation, we used to have a server-side exploitation. Now we have a lot of different frameworks by your browsers can be exploited. So once an attacker get hold of on one of the simple cross-site scripting, your entire browser can be hijacked. He can control where you are going. He can control, or he can give you a stream by which it can redirect you to some places where he wants you to go. And a lot of stuff can be injected in iframe. So even you are not aware of where your HTTP requests are hitting, but still you are hitting from your browser. So all these are important changes which we are looking at the 2.0. And enemies, attacks, and cause complex architecture and confusion with technology. We have already seen the Web 2.0 worms and viruses, which are next generation worms and viruses, which are not infecting your boxes, they are infecting your browsers, your browser sessions, your browsers and such. So like a SAMI, Yammer, Space Flash, all these are already popular worms and viruses which are discovered on internet for virus specific for a site and virus specific for the type of browser you are using. Ajax and JavaScript client-side attacks are on the rise. We are seeing CSS, XSS, and CSRF on it. Web services attacks and exploitation toolkits out there which can easily help in enumerating your web services and exploiting it. And importantly, Flash clients running in Adobe are vulnerable to several different attack vectors, and that is where we are seeing some of the traffic or some of the attacks hitting too. And if you want to see some of the real life cases of the Web 2.0 incidents, you can go to the webappsec.org/projects, where they have a WHID, that's the web hacking incident database, where they are capturing all the incidents happened in the year. And already we have seen Gmail CSRF exploit and hijack a domain. We have seen Orkut XSS making money, MySpace, which is essentially from blogs and boards. We have another XSS with a RSS feed. We have a MySpace where Flash component was exploited. We have HTTP response splitting for Google bloggers and such. So all these are different kind of 2.0 attacks which we're already seeing going in live World Wide Web. Now, how to discover vulnerability? How, if you are coming across a Web 2.0 application, how you can discover these vulnerabilities with your 2.0 applications? So we are focusing on different methodologies, like a black box methodology where you try to run a script or you try to run a tool and try to identify vulnerability. And then you have a white box where you have a source code with you, analyze the source code and exactly pinpoint a vulnerability. So 3 important steps before performing an attack or performing a vulnerability assessment you need to do is, one is a fingerprinting, second is the discovery, and finally enumeration and crawling. Fingerprinting is application framework. What we are looking at over here is like more or we want to know which web server they are running with, and on top of it, what web application server they are running with. And then we can do a discovery, go for the crawling 2.0, and then we do a scan strategies for fuzz or a scan the application, and then come up with a secure coding or a firewall. So when you do a fingerprinting, what you are looking at over here is what kind of a back-end application server you are running with, because that gives you an inclination that what kind of a Web 2.0 technologies they are using. Say for example, they are using at the back end a WebLogic or a Tomcat or Atlas or Dojo, what they are using or what they are running with, what kind of a structures they are running with. So that's the whole objective of doing a fingerprinting. So over here, for example, this is a very simple tool which you can download from our site, like an app print. What I'm doing over here is you just pass on the IP address and just do a scan. Or over here, what it's going to do is, number one is definitely go and try to identify which web server you are running with. But that's very common. You get it from a banner, or over here we are sending 12 requests and identifying the behavior of the banner. What I'm more interested is in the backend application server. So when I get the HTTP banner back, I'm not going to get what backend application you are running with. So what I'm doing over here is we are sending 2 or 3 requests by which we try to invoke various different backend components. Whether you are running with a WebLogic, you are running with a servlets, you are running with a JSP, you are running with ASMX framework, which is calling a .NET framework or such. So over here, I'm trying to fingerprint. Are you running with Resin? Are you running with a Tomcat? Are you running with a WebLogic, WebSphere, Orion? Which application framework you are running with? Once I have this information in place, I know what kind of attacks I can perform or what kind of attack an attacker can do. For example, if it is a Tomcat, then the web services engine is Axis. If it is a .NET, then web services engine is ASMX and such. So this is the one part where I'm doing a fingerprinting of your of the web application framework or web application infrastructure. Once I'm done with that, next thing I'm interested in is what kind of a AJAX call you are making, because that is where the most important or critical point line. That you are using HTML, CSS, it will go to the JS DOM, it will go to the XML or XML HTTP request, XHR object, and then you make an asynchronous call over HTTPS, will hit to your web server, go to the XML pipe and data source. So there are various different libraries out there which are using different libraries like Dojo, or you have a toolkit from GWT from Google on such. And all these different toolkits have their own different vulnerabilities, like JSON hijacking or doing a CSRF with libraries and such. So what I'm interested in is identifying those backend pieces or backend library or fingerprinting them. So over here, what I'm doing is I'm very quickly running a simple Firebug over here and try to see what kind of a call going at the backend. So over here I can see those calls and then I can analyze their source, and over source I can identify this is using XHR or over here this is using a protocol or a prototype library over here. That is all manual. Or what you can do is you can run a simple toolkit called scan web2.0. Over here I am trying to identify all these different sites, what kind of a technology they are using with. So I have collected fingerprints for various different toolkits over here, and I just write this bat file which will kick on 3 different servers. So first I'm looking at is on this my demo site where it is clearly, these are the list of toolkits, popular toolkits like Prototype, Scriptaculous, Dojo, DWR, MoveFX, jQuery, Atlas, etc. So over here on the first I've identified that this guy is running with a prototype.js. Then this guy, it is running with a combination of a dojo.js and a jQuery.js. And then on Apple, I can identify that it is running with a prototype.js and a scriptaculous.js. Now, this will start adding into my information pool that particular application running with this web server at the back end, this is the application server. On top, I have these kind of a toolkits or these kind of a tools or a development framework which Target is using. Then you can go ahead and discover the publicly known vulnerabilities and try to analyze them, that how strong their security measures are and such. Next, what you can do is you can do a flash-based scanning as well. So say for example your application is running with a flash, so I want to do a flash fingerprinting. There is a flash finger.rb. So what I'm doing over here is just I'm trying to scan the app pages and try to identify what kind of SWF file they are running with. So over here very simply I've identified it's running with a finder.swf. The next is there is another piece where you can identify what kind of a framework it is running with. There are 2 popular frameworks out there for if you are loading your Flash or a Flash-based application. One is from Adobe, which is a Flash 2 or Flash 3, whichever framework you are running with. And then there is open source framework called Leslo. Now this, if your developer has written an application using a Leslo, then Leslo has a LZX file, that's the decompilable files. So you have these LZX files over here in a second part where you can identify these LZX files, you can download them, you can decompile it, and you can see the full business logic from that file. So you're starting to gather all this different information about your target application as such for the application which you want to assess. Once you are done with that, then what you are moving on is that I want to do a discovery. That essentially when I do a discovery, I'm looking for that what kind of a structures I have to deal with. Whether I am doing a JSON, I am doing a JSON array, I am doing a JS object, what kind of a structures which is marshalling between my application. So that is a very important piece, because then when you do assessment, you have to inject your payloads into that. It's like, say for example, you do see a name value pair traffic, then you have to do a name value injection. If you do a JSON, you have to do a JSON injection and such. So in the next step, what I'm trying to do over here is just do a framework. So just say for example I'm doing this login.trade.aspx page. I enter my username and password over here, and user is authenticated. Now I can run this script called scanatlas.rb, and over here with this I can identify it is running with the backend trade.asmx page. So I know that there is a backend web services running, and this is the traffic which is going to look like. Now over here this traffic is coming back as a very simple customized structure which is coming back. There is no refresh and reload. Just when you click a button, this is a traffic what it is going out, and this is a response which you get back. So it is entire DOM is not getting reloaded. It's just the full bits and pieces of a DOM is getting reloaded over here. So I have identified that over here in this application it is running the backend structure, running with the Atlas. You have a backend web services running with the ASMX, and the front end is your JavaScript. And then there are various different structures which you have to deal with, like a JSON, XML, script, JS array, JS object. Very quickly I can show you a few of them. So when you click this page, you get these kind of a response back. Now you can see this response is not your traditional name value pair or HTML response. It is called JavaScript object notation or a JSON over here. Or for example, if you click this guy over here, say XML, then you are getting the XML stream back over here. And all these is, as you can see, it is coming on the AJAX traffic. It's coming over XHR over here. So the second part where I finish my discovery phase, where I know that what kind of a traffic I have to deal with when I do my assessment on the application. Now, interesting part. Now, how do you crawl these